Alright, hello and welcome back to my real-time strategy in Unity tutorial. Today we are going to be covering the AI building units in Unity and sort of chaining decisions. So say if we wanted to build a worker but we didn't have the resources or a storehouse or a temple or whatever, it would then make the decision to meet those requirements first and then go back and build the worker. So that's it. So I'll just give you a quick demo of that here. So if I go find these workers and move the camera to them, the AI is there. So I can just move the camera here. So if you'll look on the faction controller here, we'll see that the faction resources are sufficient enough to build a farm and whatnot. They can build buildings. So if I press I now, which will basically just issue a command to build a worker, which I'll show you in this. So first off, they'll build a temple, because that is something that is required for the way you build the workers. And next, they should build some houses or something. Yeah, they'll build houses because I implemented a population system, so you need homes to construct units. I'll just maximize this in a second. Yep. And they will also build a farm because I didn't give them any food, so they require that resource. Well, that might actually be the storehouse first, but whatever. Yeah. And now they will build the farm, and then they will go to gather food from that farm, take it to the storehouse, and then after building another house, they should have all the requirements needed to actually build a worker. Yep, see, they've got the little location for the house set out there. Likewise, they go to gather food, and they should take that to the storehouse. And since it'll have 500 food, the temple should be building the worker. And any second now, yep, you can see they built a worker. And just to show you, if I press O, the AI will start gathering food again. So you'll see that that worker that just got built can now go and gather food. And if I press I again, it won't do all of this again. It'll just build another worker at the temple. So you go, and again, pressing O, that other worker can be used to build to go gather food. I press I, builds another worker, and so on and so forth. I'll just give you another quick demonstration. So if I take away all the food, as soon as it stops doing this, I just have to wait for it to load. This might be a long introduction here. Might actually be a long episode overall, actually. So if I press play again, start it up. And say if I had like 1,000 food, but no wood or whatever, or stone, then a different order of operation, well, not order of operations, a different sort of actions would take place from the AI. So if I press I, they'll go and start it. First off, what they do is build a storehouse because there's no place to store resources, which they need to gather because they need stone, wood, and gold to build farms and houses and whatnot and temples. So you'll see that they will go and gather, I think, 1,000-ish wooden stone. So they'll make 2 trips. And then get back to the storehouse to deposit that. And they do it sort of instantaneously, so that's why they didn't stop, but they got within the right distance. And then we'll take that. The reason they don't go to the nearest tree or resource, by the way, is that I have sort of there's a minimum acceptable distance, which is within 10 units of this wherever the starting location was. So even though this tree may be closer, to make the searching algorithm more efficient, we just decide, okay, this tree is like 10 meters away. So that's far enough to go. So we go that way. Imagine where they're fucking off to. Oh, they're going to gold. Because we need gold to build a farm. Right. And yeah, So I'll go back, I'll deposit that gold and start work on the buildings that we need. Oh no, they're going to go for more wood first, but yeah, you get the idea. Basically, based on like what kind of conditions they have or haven't met, the AI will then add more decisions to meet these conditions to achieve the original goal, which in this case was building a worker. So I'll just let this play out, then we'll dive into the code. Where are you going? Oh, you're building a farm, even though we don't need it. Oh well. I don't know why you're not doing anything. Yeah. Oh, that'll be the one that it made, actually, because for some reason. That's odd. Oh well. So yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so the first the first change I've made is the queue monitor has been turned into a coroutine, which is basically called in the start method at the start of the game with the start queue monitor, start coroutine queue monitor. So you don't actually like specify the method; you just pass in the identifier as the string, and that's how you call them. And basically, what it does is it performs one check of like doing an action, so it'll do the first action in the queue, then check if there's like enough stuff in the queue to either unpause all decisions so that it does that if it's empty, or clear the list if there is no more decisions to be executed, or there are no more decisions to hold, and there are some in progress decisions. And then it will wait for a second, and then start the coroutine again. So it'll just keep repeating this block of code once a second. It might look slightly different in like later little bits of the episode, just because I forgot to remove the start coroutine here queue monitor, which is in the wrong place. So I'll remove that now. Sorry about that. And also, it was quite fast in the example up there, but same premise in the second part. Sorry, in the basically in the demonstration at the end, it'll be the correct version rather than the start, but the premise is the same. It was just running like a fucking 60 times the speed because I had it being called in the update function as well as by itself. So, and then you don't need the start coroutine either, which I may have said in the start or whatever. So that is what the final bit should look like. Another thing I added was for individual faction resources, I just added a can we do building action and can we construct building. Basically takes in either a building action or a building and basically checks if they can perform the action based on the amount of resources the faction has. It was just the same because I needed it there as well as like in the players resources thing because we need to check different resource values and whatnot. What was the second one? Let's check the script. Thalmas class has resource. Yes. Basically I added because there was a bug where sometimes when the AI was placing building, it would make the resources that the units wanted to gather unworkable, and that'd cause everything to stop. So what I've done is added a has resource boolean to a Thalmas class, which basically sets whenever like a tree is placed on the resource. So saying has resource is true, or if a rocky tile, if we add a resource here, it's set to true again. And for farm tiles, I think I set that in the inspector. Stop that. So if I just go to project, you'll be able to see that the prefab for the rocky tile has a assuming Unity loads. Basically, the prefab has it. Basically, now it loads. Prefabs, wheat tile, and you'll see it has resource. So that's just set as a default because it will always have a resource on it. And that is used in the building placement, I believe. Build. No. If we can find it. AI building store. There we go. So add location if valid. So I believe there's location is valid. If is location valid for a building, go to declaration. So basically, for the is location valid for building, we're basically checking if all the nodes are walkable, if all the nodes are walkable, if all the tiles are walkable, and if it has a resource. So if any of these conditions are met, like if it's not walkable, or if the tile's not walkable, or if it has a resource, then we're saying, all right, nah, not a valid location, so we don't use that. And that's why that is there. And I believe I added something else. No, okay. That was just it. I did a check for resources. So we don't build over resources, basically what we're doing to stop a bug happening. All right. And another thing I've changed is on our decision building. Basically, it checks if we can, if basically uses that resources method we added to can we construct building to basically check can we construct a building instead of always returning true. So if it returns false, then it will say, all right, we want to go gather the resources for this building, which is basically added here. Sorry, I'll find it in a second. AI decision maker. Basically, we can pass in a building, and for each of the values of the building which is more than 0, so if it needs that resource, then we can go gather it. Admittedly, I should probably do a check as well for if we actually already have enough of that resource. But whatever, I will do that later. And again, we have a similar method for building actions. So if we want to build a unit, when we just pass in the unit or whatever, and then, or the action cost, sorry, and then we can go and gather those specific resources. So yeah, what was the next one? Also, for when we gather a resource, I've added an additional check for is node walkable. So basically, we want to make sure that the resource, just as a sort of like a second sort of check for stopping bugs where the AI would just get stuck on unwalkable nodes. If the node isn't walkable, then we don't use the resource, and that just basically checks because that check is done by parsing the position in the grid from the transformed position. We can do this basically because it's the tiles are 1 by 1 and they start spawning at 0, 0. So that is why this works. If you have, say, larger tiles or you don't start spawning at 0, 0, then you will have to do some additional maths to work out the position in the grid of tiles. But since I'm doing it like this, I can. The train. Basically, we check if the tile and its pathfinding node are walkable, then we return true. So saying, yes, we can use that resource, otherwise we return false, saying, nah, not using it. So yeah. Okay, so another alteration I made was to the building action to allow the AI to use it to build workers as well as the player. So basically, the main change is that we use... basically, since the action is instantiated as a child of the building that is doing the action, we check the parent for a faction identifier, as all AI buildings will have a faction identifier linking to their like list of buildings, units, and so forth. So if we don't have that one, if we don't have a faction identifier in a building, then we just say, all right, do normal shit. Or if we do, we do some things a little different. So first off, we just spawn the unit as normal, but we and restore it. Then we add a faction identifier to the worker here, and we basically set the faction to be the faction of the building, basically, which is got here, and we also add it to the respective factions list of units because yeah, sorry about explaining that out of order, but yeah, it makes sense. And I've just noticed an error where this will actually set the time for all the AI to be the player's upgrade time, so I will have to add a change to that to make it faction building worker. That should be an easy fix, so I'll do that at some point. Again, also on can we do, we do a similar thing. So if we check, if we don't have a faction identifier in the parent, just return as normal. But if we do, we basically just get the faction identifier and check the faction's resources and population rather than just the players. Okay, so now we're on to the new stuff that I've implemented. First off is the faction population. which is basically a you know how population works in RTS is you need to build houses to house your workers, soldiers, stuff like that. And yeah, so again, we have a faction identifier, my faction. We've got a list of game objects, which is just the houses that have been built by the AI. We've got a population limit, which is the maximum number of units that you can have, and a current population, which is how many units are currently built. And we also have a timer. So this is just initializing the faction and the list of objects, and we have a method saying my house.add house. So this will say like, all right, want to add a house, say to increase the population, and we then calculate that again. And likewise, we have a remove, so we remove houses and calculate max population, say if a house was destroyed or something. Max population is just the number of houses multiplied by 5. And then we set that to be the population limit. And also we can calculate the current population. It's basically just all the factions units, so it's archers, workers, and hoplites, all summed and set to the current population. And we have a boolean to check if we can construct a unit. So if the population limit is more than the current population, we return false. Otherwise, we return true. No, we're returning false all the time. Shit. So if the current population limit is more than the current population, we return true. Sorry, I missed that, but yeah. And if get potential population, basically get potential population is the one key difference between this and the player's population. So I should go to that, find it. I can't. Player population, there we go. Basically, the difference between this is it doesn't have a calculate potential population. Actually, no, it should just be that, shouldn't it? That's the same. Can we construct unit? Sorry, I'm just making changes. I shouldn't be doing this on the fly, but whatever. Return population. Well, yeah, that'd be the same. Basically, what we're trying to do is when we're wanting to construct units and we're checking for population, if we've like added the decision to build another house as a building, but we've not got around to actually building it yet, we want to know if we are already trying to build a house, to make sure that we don't keep building them until one of these houses is built and we've been taken over and the population condition has been met. So this basically just checks all the decisions that we've made to see if we're building a house in any of them, and if it does, it adds that population to the current population limit to show like what the new population limit will be once all these decisions are finished. And return if that is more than the current population, then it'll return true, otherwise false. And yeah, that is only used in the workers. The decision to build workers and in the future all units, but whatever, we'll get to that in a minute. And again, I'll just show you that. So the player one is identical, except it has a singleton player population manager, so it can be accessed from any of the player scripts. And otherwise, it's just pretty much identical, except it doesn't have the calculate potential population. We do. Sorry, I forgot to mention the monitor population. So basically, it works basically the same to the coroutine. I don't know why I didn't put it in it, and I was not been thinking, but whateonce a second, it will calculate the max population and the current population for the faction. Just to keep it up to date, but we don't need to do it every frame, so we just do it once a second. That'd be another way of doing it. It's probably a less elegant way, but whatever. And we do a similar thing for the train that is flying past and interrupting us. No, we do the same thing for the player population here. And we also, in the player one, we also have a GUI, basically just draws the current population and the max population in a box. Simple enough stuff, really. And for each faction, we have another variable to store it. We add it here in the initialize function, and we send it here. All right, and finally, we'll get onto the actual building of the workers now. And I'll sort of explain like how the daisy chaining would work within the context of doing decisions. Yeah. So first off, say we call. No, I don't need to call key monitor here, do I now? I don't know why it was there. Oh no. Okay, never mind. So basically, call create unit. So we say worker. So go to declaration, and if unit dot equals worker, so we could pass in the future. In the future, we're going to set it to like if you passed in a hoplite or an archer or whatever, if we do that one. But for now, we only have workers at the moment. So we say, all right, get a new decision, we initialize it, we set the faction, and we add it to the decision queue. And this decision create worker basically it checks first if we actually do. We get a building action create worker here because we want to have a reference to it so we know how much it costs because we're going to be needing to use it multiple times. So say once is here to see if we can perform and one to see if we need to meet this condition. And basically by doing this, it avoids us having to do a find object of type again, which is quite an expensive call to make performance-wise. So that basically means we only ever have to do it once per decision to create worker, rather than multiple times every time we want to check if we can do it or not. So yeah. So basically, we check if we've not got a building. If we've not got a temple, which is used to create workers, or if we don't have enough free population, or if we can't do the building action because we've not got the resources, it'll return false, saying no, we can't build a worker. Otherwise, it returns true. And on can't perform action, so if it's false. If we don't have a temple and we're not trying to build a temple, we do that. If we don't have enough population, we'll say to build a building, to build a house. Sorry. And again, if we don't have a temple, we'll say build a temple. And if we don't have the resources to build a worker, we'll say, all right, go gather the resources that are required for a worker. So since we're passing in the building action, it will just be some food that we need to do it. So yeah, and then the decision is paused. Likewise so say we sent gathering resources back, so it had the food one. So if we wanted to gather food, we check if we had wheat near us, a wheat tile, if we had a storehouse, and if we had a farm, and if we didn't have any of those, we would return false, otherwise we return true. And then it would go on to do it, and if it didn't, it would check again. I did make some changes to this. Basically, the accepting condition is first, so if it can gather food, then it'll just break here. Otherwise, it'll go on to check and see what it needs to do to create it. And yeah, I got distracted. And if we can perform the action, it will basically just get the temple that is nearest to the spawn location and say, all right, if we've not got if you've not got anything in the list to do in the temple building action queue, then we will say, all right, we want to add this building action create worker as a child game object by using the instantiate and saying the transform will be the parent of the new object. And then we add the action to the queue, and then we set this decision in progress. The reason we have the if temple building action queue is less than one. We basically don't want to keep adding it every time. This is check. Sorry. Sleepy. Yeah. So hopefully that made sense. Okay, so final little demonstration with the coroutine working correctly. So if I just give, say, these guys some food just to speed up the process, if I press I, it will start the coroutine, and you'll see it's quite slow. I'll just go to the scene, and if I can find the AI, wherever they are in the level, there we are. No, I've lost them. There we go. So you'll see they will build that building, and then you'll see sort of like the chain reaction of a sort of decisions, despite what we've said to do specifically is to build a worker. So they're saying, all right, To do that, we need the resources, and we need a temple. We need more houses for the population, so they'll go and meet all the requirements to do those, and then do them. So yeah. Cheers for watching and stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Shit. I just missed that. And they have to go quite far to find gold or whatever. So yeah, I might implement that new procedural generation of like consonants that I did a video on Saturday about. And again, I'm still working on Loud or Quiet's arcade mode, so that'll be coming up within the next week or so, because it should be out by the end of the month, so I've still got to do some work on that. And yeah. I'll just wait for these guys to finish first. I've not got much else to say, actually, except, yeah, you can see all the decisions that have been made there to get to this point. And build worker, then the gathering of resources, and now we've got farm. For some reason, there's a profile accident. No, still I'm getting a smooth 16 millisecond frame time, I guess. The occasional spike, but I can live with that. I've got the temple now, so as you can see, since we finally met the last requirement of building the worker, we needed the temple to build it. We already got the food, so since we got that, now we can do it. And if I press O, which is a new debug command, we can see that they can use that newly built worker to go gather food. And likewise, the original workers will also go and gather food, and then they'll, since the stars is right there, they'll just like instantaneously doing it, but whatever. So yeah, that was that. Cheers for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Go check out my downloads on itch.io. Loud or Quiet is really good, trust. And bye.